Hey everyone, welcome back to another Executive Table Talk. I'm JT O'Donnell, CEO of Work It Daily, and today we're talking about how to deal with difficult stakeholders and peers within your organization. I am very, very lucky to have some fantastic executives joining me here today. Anna Smith, Mark Taylor, both of them come with a fantastic background in their respective spaces, and they're going to be giving us some tips and insights today on really how to deal with this. And as before we started the show, by the way, welcome Anna, welcome Mark, good to have you here. Before we started talking, the three of us were, backstage, and we were talking about the fact that, really one of the indicators of how far you can go in your career has a lot to do with the kinds of people that you can work with, or I should say, put up with, that there are going to be people that are difficult. And I know that both of you have had a lot of experience with this, so I'm excited to tap into that. But I really want to set that, expectation to all the listeners today that if you're finding yourself constantly running up against people that you think are difficult, there's some real work to be done here because you're not going to change them. You can't get inside their head and reprogram them, but you can change what you do and how you approach it. So I'm excited to be able to offer some of those insights here today, which is great. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. Anna, I'm going to pick on you first, right? Because I really loved what you said here. I want to talk about it. You said there's some basic areas that you need to focus on in successful stakeholder management. Identifying stakeholders, both internally and externally, is one of them. Understanding the stakeholders' needs, meeting their needs, under-promising and over-delivering, listening to stakeholder concerns, frequently communicating, amongst others, because if not done properly, they can result in spectacular project failures. Now, I'm just going to say something here. It sounds like, I was saying you have to change your actions, but this really sounds like you're putting all of the emphasis or the work on the person that wants to deal with these negative or difficult stakeholders. So why is that? What's the benefit of that? Because you are a talent architect, you are a global learning specialist, you've worked with a lot of executives. Why do we have to look at it as our job and not so much their job or equal parts our jobs?
Yes, JT, this is definitely a critical area of success of a project. And hopefully everybody that has had an opportunity to have a project most probably has had to deal with difficult, complex, global stakeholders, right? Not necessarily down the hallway, etc. So for starters, you have to understand and very clearly outline a plan of who your stakeholders are, both the internal and the external. Sometimes you have folks that are outside of the organization, maybe vendors, maybe in some instances government areas, etc. But you have to have everybody mapped out and understood. And what I mean by that is you need to understand how much they are understanding of the project, how much are they engaged in the project, how much are they willing to go and support the project, how many questions might they have, etc., etc. So it's very, very important to really understand, for starters, who the stakeholders are. Another big piece is a frequent and constant communication with every one of them. One of the things that I have found certainly the hard way is what is the frequency that you have to have in terms of communication. In projects, there's certain report outs, or whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, etc., formal ones that you have to provide around the three key areas of the iron triangle of scope, budget, and time. But at the same time, you have to consider and you have to make sure that everybody that, especially the ones that are the key stakeholders, have what they need. And that may mean having additional one-on-one conversations with them. What is the most important way that I can provide information so that you can have the necessary information on the project and bring it back into your team or your org, etc., and put that into your plan. So right. Probably those areas are key.
So what I'm hearing you say is that part of the reason people could be difficult is because maybe you haven't put the right processes in place. So if you're not doing your job, that could be what's making it difficult, that you haven't set them up for success. But let's say you have. Let's say you are doing these things, you're following the proper protocol, and you've got stakeholders that aren't responding, You've got stakeholders that are, constantly complaining.
Yes.
They are about others, just kind of stirring the pot. What do you do in those situations? Because you are, like you said, you've laid the framework, you've set the expectations, and they're not following them.
Yes. And that is such an important piece of the process. As soon as you detect something like that, and it's gonna most probably happen because we're human, you have to immediately tackle this and have the conversation. This is the type of results or comments or things that I've been getting from your team in terms of the delivery of inputs, the timing of the inputs, their commentary, the feedback. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. So what is the best way so that I can complete what I need to complete? If not, this is going to have consequences in timeline, budget, or overarching scope. So grab it early in the game, but you have to be very direct and at the same time friendly in terms of understanding and bringing this forward. If you postpone it, it's gonna be costly for you as the owner of the project.
And I like the way that you are, one, you're hitting it early and fast, but two, you're explaining it against the three pillars, the triangle, so that you're tying it back to the project and the budget, the time, whatever, so that they can understand the impact they're having. And the reason I say this is that I can't tell you the number of times I've seen organizations where there is a difficult person and they're keeping them because maybe they're really good at one aspect of the business.
Yes.
So they keep them because they're like, well, we don't want to lose them for that. But meanwhile, no one's factoring in the impact, the negative impact this person is having on everyone else's performance, on, everything related to the model itself. And so I really like that. And what do you advise to people? Because I'm sure there are people listening today who say, yeah, there's that one guy or gal on the team who really knows their stuff, but man, they're just awful to work with. They just really create so many problems. How, what do you coach them to do in that situation?
I usually would like to go to that particular individual first and try to do, good old coaching in terms of trying to help them gain some self-awareness of what their behavior is bringing to the table, not only for me as the project owner or the initiative owner, but for the whole, that is participating. If that doesn't work, it needs to be elevated again quickly with their managers. I think that this is fundamental because the implications can be dramatic. It's probably one of the main reasons why projects fail, because of human factors.
Yep, definitely. I love it. It's a great foundation. So with that in mind, I want to bounce it back over now and talk to you, Mark, for a little bit, because I mean, this one really, really made me smile. I can say, how many years have I been working? Way too many years. And I'd never heard of the dancing monkey, which you define the DM as the length of time between giving someone work to do and your brain wondering why you haven't seen any product yet, meaning that, no output. Why are the results not there? And then you said if a stakeholder's DM works on a more frequent cycle to yours, they might come across as difficult. So talk us through that and talk us through how you solve for that, because I absolutely love this. I think this happens way more than people realize.
Yeah. So look. So here's the thing. I don't know whether I've invented a dancing monkey or whether it's somebody else's that I read about across the years. Again, I'm always just trying to be effective, JT. Right? Not trying to be right, just trying to be effective. So again, if this is something I've invented, good for me. And if it's somebody else's, then kudos there. And if there's anybody on watching at the moment, they can tell me who that original inventor was, then again, kind of kudos in that direction. So when I looked at the original question, right, difficult stakeholders, what kind of jumped into my head, I guess initially was like the definition of the stakeholder, which in my head was, so here's somebody that's more senior than you, right? And it's also somebody that possibly thinks that they have skin in the game, right? So you might be sat there and thinking, why is person X, who's more senior than me, getting involved in this? Because it's not really theirs to do. Doesn't matter, right? Not least because they're more senior than you are. So I think the first thing is you've got to accept that you are playing somebody else's game. That's the first thing. And also as well, I think in most cases, the difficult person wants the same positive outcome that you do, which is to get the job done, right? And what do you mean about getting the job done? Well, something gets completed, so it's the work that's done is complete, it's accurate, and it's done on a timely basis. And I think that the key issue of those three elements is timeliness. So that's kind of like the background, I guess. So where's the dancing monkey come in? So if I give you something to do, I'll give you an example. So I give you something to do, JT, on Monday morning. Right, it's Monday morning, so I've got in and my brain's still working. So I'm maybe give you something to do by 10:30, 11 o'clock on Monday. And then I'd like to think I'm an adult and you're an adult and you can prioritize your work. And I've got other things to do as well. And being completely honest, I'll probably completely forget that I've given you something to do. Because there's other things going on, and it's a natural thing, this dancing monkey as well, right? It's not something that you actually kind of prompt to appear. But for me, if I give you something at 11 o'clock on Monday, completely forget that I've done anything with you until probably about 11 o'clock on Thursday, and then all of a sudden it'll just jump into my head again unannounced. It's like, I've not heard anything from JT. I wonder how that's going, because we've got to present this to the CEO on Tuesday of next week. So it'd be great to understand, where are we with it? Is it looking in great shape? Then that's great, because, but if it's not started or anything like that, we've only got until Tuesday, which means we've got Thursday afternoon, Friday, maybe a little bit of Monday. We're kind of running out of time. So my dancing monkey is whatever that is, 3 days. And that worked for me really, really well, until I came across somebody who was more senior than me that thought they had skin in the game, something that I was doing, and they gave me something to do on Monday morning. So in my head, I'm like, well, as long as I look at it by Wednesday afternoon and break it back by Wednesday evening, and then think about it Wednesday night, and then come and start to tweak it on Thursday, I'm fine. I'm on top of that. And what I realized was that we all have a dancing monkey, and their dancing monkey was about 4 hours.
Yeah, same day.
Right, same day, right? So
Same
as far as I'm concerned, you gave me on Monday. I'm not even going to think about it till Tuesday.
Yeah.
Again, it was really. I mean, I laugh about it now, but at the time, it wasn't laughable, because I realized that they'd been giving me things to do. It was a new person, right? And they'd been giving me things to do for about 10 days. And then on the 11th day, I suddenly thought, oh, you've given me 10 things to do, and I've barely started, the third one. So I guess my point is there's this, they are, I think they're difficult because their sense of what needs to be done and the time that it needs to be done is just different to yours.
100%.
So that's the whole background, that's the whole construct. So, what I wrote about was then to say, well, how do you get around that? And it's definitely an art. I think it's different with everybody, but here's what I started to do. So I had that difficult example that I've just talked about, and that kind of worked itself out. And then a few years later, I came across a different person who was pretty much an identikit to the person that had given me the challenge a couple of years before. I've been here before now. I think I know what to do. So I actually worked in a different office to where they worked. So I moved offices. I made sure that I found a hot desk close to where they worked, and then I would walk past their office. I'm going to go and get a coffee. I'm going to get a coffee. I'll walk past their office. Are they in? Oh, what? They are. So what I would do was, and the door was cracked, so I'd literally put my head around the door, right? So my body language is saying, I'm not, I know you're busy. I'm not stopping, but look, I've got a coffee, and it would be remiss for me not to acknowledge that you're here today. Right? So, hey, how are you doing? And they'd look up and they say, fine. Yeah, how are you doing? Good. That work you gave me yesterday, I've started it. Just giving you that heads up that, I'm looking at it. And then this is where you find out what their dancing monkey is, because they go, great. It would be really good if you could sit down before the end of the day and you can take me through what you've done. Or they go, that's fantastic. As long as I see something by next Monday, we're good. Oh, great. Well, cool. Thank you. I know you're busy. I'm going to keep going. And that, again, is the point where you either kind of mosey back to your desk and you say, well, as long as I've got an extra 3 days to get this done, and I'll just chip away over those 3 days, or you run back, right? And you cancel all the meetings for the rest of the day, and you frantically go through something until you've got something of the appropriate, the appropriate depth that you could sit with that person for half an hour or 60 minutes and show them what you've done, show them where you're going, show what your thought process is.
I love that story, and I wanted everyone to hear that from someone who's been there, done that, because when we're coaching people, we always say, whenever you're given an unrealistic request, an unrealistic time frame, you really should make the assumptions that they're trying to be difficult or terrible to you. You need to go back and clarify and ask them, can you walk me through what you want to see by that date? Can you walk me through the steps you want me to take to get there? Because oftentimes what you find out is the way you're viewing the project needs to be done and the time that needs to be taken to do it is completely different from their own. And they either are right and you're doing it the long way and they can show you some shortcuts and get you there, or by going and asking those questions, having that conversation, you can bring them to a level of awareness that there's a lot more that goes into this than they realize, and that they're not asking for something that can be done in 4 hours. They're asking for something that needs 4 days. And I think that this is where so many people out there, when they say they're dealing with difficult people, there are the difficult people who are just rude, who have a personality issue. And those are things you need to learn to deal with. But a lot more often, they're difficult because they're demanding something of you. And had they been educated on what it really required of you, you could have come to some sort of agreement, and they could have said, oh, well, absolutely, take 4 days, not 4 hours. But they didn't know that. And I think it's incredible how many people assume that their bosses or their bosses' bosses, when they ask for things, know exactly what goes on. No, they don't. They don't do every part of the job. They've hired you to do that. So it is on you to manage the expectations and help them understand what's going on, what you're going to need for resource, what you're going to need for time, right? That sort of thing. And so I'm glad that you brought that up, because to Anna's point, we need to set expectations, manage, support people, give them what they need, which can eliminate a lot of stakeholder issues and pushback. But 2, if we're getting that pushback, it's still on us to try to go figure out where's the disconnect, right? And how we can do that.
Yeah, just to kind of add to it, JT. So what I found is you learn so much from the difficult person.
You do.
So again, if you remember how I started as well, it's somebody that's more senior than you, and that they're getting involved even though you're not quite sure why they have skin in the game. And what you will almost certainly find out is, first of all, they're more senior than you, which means maybe they've seen this before. And there's a reason why it needs to get done today, because there are numerous other things that could happen and go wrong, or expectations around that. And just as a general thing as well, another thing that I picked up that makes a lot of sense, right? Which is, it's speed against the enemy, right? There's somebody else out there that's trying to get things done, right? So the quicker you are doing things, the better. Yeah. So you get in front of the more senior person quickly, and you might suddenly find out that there's greater context as to why that speed needs to happen.
Totally agree.
So that's educational to you. And the other piece as well, then you go like, why is this person getting involved? It's nothing to do with them. And then you suddenly realize it's a hell of a lot to do with them.
Yeah.
And that's why they need to see something quickly. So I would say, and it might be difficult sometimes, but maybe the difficult person is the person that you actually should be engaging with more, right? It's not that that they are difficult. It's just that they see more than you do.
There's something there.
It's almost like move towards the difficult person.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
And you probably get something out of it.
I love that. Well, first of all, I want to give out a shout out to my friend Steve Tappan. Steve wants to let us know that Dancing Monkey was first written by a busker named Tony Watson, age 26. Good to know.
There we go,
right?
man. That's what it was.
Freaking love it. That's fantastic, Steve. You're the best. But also,
but here's the thing, Steve, because I used to be a busker called, it's moved now, Tony. So maybe it was me that did invent it in the first place.
There you go. You might have beat her. Absolutely. We'll have to get to the bottom of that. But I want to circle back to Anna because Steve is asking a really great question, which I know he knows the answer to, but he's serving it up for Anna to expand on this. How can you raise awareness of difficult stakeholders and peers? So you mentioned that. You said, you like to go and coach the person and try to raise their awareness around how they're acting. Can you talk through a little bit, maybe one or two techniques you use to help somebody become more self-aware that they're being difficult?
Yes, absolutely, JT. I think that, one of the first questions for me, when having these one-on-ones with this particular type of individuals is asking them, how is the style that they have on a day-to-day basis working for them? Mm-hmm. How is your style, across the board? Well, in general, it's working. If I were to go and survey some of the people that you support or work with, etc., what would they say about your style? What do you think? So take it outside of their perspective and try to bring it into theirs and try to put a mirror in front of them relative to this. So that is one important piece. The other piece is if your job were at stake, right, in a conversation, right, not just like jumping into this like as the first question, but if your job was at stake given this project or this initiative, how would you want to behave?
Yeah.
So
it's really interesting. I love that you are asking, not telling. Yes. That you're getting them to talk it through their mindset.
Yes.
So that you can then offer some practical advice back. It's funny. I recently heard this and I really do like it. They said, when you're trying to have a conversation like that with someone that is difficult like that, they've done something and it's not working. Don't ask them, why did you do that? Mm-hmm. Because that word, why comes off accusatory and people tend to naturally react defensively. They said, instead you say, what brought you to that course of action? Mm-hmm. Or what made you decide to go about it that way? Mm-hmm. That, for whatever reason, people do not feel threatened by the what phraseology versus the why. And you still get that. You get what you're looking for, which is the explanation. Then that allows you to calmly kind of point things out or pivot them in another direction. I thought that was pretty cool. But more importantly, the fact that you're really emphasizing it has the clarifying questions.
Yes, exactly. I think that to that point, and just building on that, on what you just said, JT, there's also the opportunity to ask something along the lines of what might be getting in the way for you in order to complete this or to do the things that the rest of the team might be looking from you. What might be, well, it's only the fact that I am spreading 10 different projects. For example, why would I know that? But now that I know what I know, then there's a different type of conversation. No, does your manager know? Does your manager's manager know? I mean, how can this conversation help you have a conversation with your boss or with the team lead or whatever?
It's so interesting. And I really hear a theme coming together through all of your answers today from both of you. And if you think about it, I just want to give a shout out to the LinkedIn user that commented and said alignment issues could be around priorities, schedule, deliverables to address, set and manage expectations up front. All of this is coming back to the basic idea of communicate and get to the bottom of it, right? That's it. There's something there. If you look at it as an opportunity to go in and start to ask the questions, figure things out, whether it's a high-level stakeholder, that you thought had no skin in the game, as Mark said, and you really learn they do, or it's a supporting peer that really seems like they're digging in their heels and making it harder for everyone, and you can't figure out why. There's some opportunity in there for clarification, and it's amazing to me how many people choose to not address it with the person and instead go complain behind everyone's backs, go straight to, a manager and complain when there's a real opportunity there to create something by, getting on the same page with somebody who you feel out of sync with. Don't you both agree?
I do. And I think as well, JT, it's got to be real time. It's got to be face to face.
Yes.
Because there's, again, I know from experience, sometimes it's that the body language gives you all that you need to know, right? Somebody scrunches their nose up. Okay, we need to do something with that. The other thing I found as well, again, is that you generally find out more as to, again, why they're engaged with this, why they think it's important. The other thing as well, before I forget, is I think if you do these kinds of things, you suddenly, because they're probably not difficult just with you, they are difficult with everybody.
Yeah.
And most people probably will shy away from that. The fact that you go, you put your head around the door, say, how's it going? I know you're busy, but I just couldn't pass without saying hi. And you get some kind of real-time face-to-face feedback. They actually feel listened to as well.
Yeah.
I love Mark. He really gets how my brain works. I'm going to give Mark more work to do. Right? You kind of become indispensable. I know indispensable is a strong word, but you kind of power through that difficulty and you become their kind of person. So I think it's go looking for the difficult ones and maybe kind
There's
of
opportunity there.
work there. There's opportunity, absolutely.
Definitely. All right, this has been an amazing conversation. I don't know where 30 minutes goes, but I want to make sure that each of you has a little time to share. Anna, tell us a little bit about, now that everybody's heard you with these great pearls of wisdom, a little bit about your background and where people can find you and connect with you.
Absolutely. I'm in LinkedIn, Anna Smith, talent strategist. And my background is basically 25 years experience in corporate America, having roles in learning and development, talent, organizational development, and sales, which gave me a completely different perspective and respect for everyone. And I think that has been one of the biggest, if I were to summarize, a coach approach or a customer approach to everything that I do. I always have the person in front of me in mind. I have seen the results.
Yeah, definitely. And Mark, what about you?
Yeah, my background is in financial institutions globally. So I worked in the UK, worked in the US. Most recently, I've worked at a regional financial institution bank within the US. Predominantly historically around risk management, but I guess my ability to work with difficult people meant that that was then parlayed into technology, IT, and then into kind of marketing and all points in between. So that's me, and I'm on LinkedIn. There's probably hundreds of thousands of Mark Taylors on LinkedIn. So look up Mark Taylor Investors Bank, and that should point you in my direction.
I love it. Great stuff, folks. I hope you found this insightful. I hope it gives you some food for thought and you have some really good takeaways. That difficult person you're dealing with right now, there's an opportunity there. Keep that in mind. Please make sure that you reach out and connect with Anna and Mark. Let them know that you saw them on Executive Table Talk. Hopefully we'll see you again next week. And remember, if you want to win, you got to work it daily, my friends. Okay. Good luck. Go get them.